wonderful jazz voice. Let's see. And some 45s. Hardy and the invention of the blues, as well as 5 Led Zeppelin albums and a little bit about Elvis. This week on Music History, March 25th to the 30th. This week in Music History, March 25th to
the 30th?
March 30th.
All right.
You ready?
I guess so.
I'm Michael
Sure.
Cast, a.k.a. the Dirty Hippie.
Hi, I'm Terrence Thomason, host of On the Marquee and On the Marquee Deep Dive.
We just finished a deep dive
We did.
episode.
We dove deep into Spirited Away.
I liked it.
Yeah.
I liked it.
I'm glad you liked it.
Yeah, I'll probably watch another Miyazaki film if I can stream them from somewhere.
I think the 3/4 of them are on Netflix.
Well,
so
then
there you
I
go.
will keep looking.
Yeah.
Right on. Yeah. You turned me on to a new genre. Well, I think not necessarily new to me.
Right.
Right. Speaking of genres
All right.
of music,
Okay.
I decided to go this week with a little bit even further back but blues, some blues and some jazz, some important things in the blues and jazz realm.
All right.
Yeah.
What do you got?
1924,
Yeah.
March 27th, 1924, Sarah Vaughan was born.
Yeah, I saw that, and I left that to you.
Yeah, normally I don't burst and desolate, but actually this week I contradict myself,
All right.
which I think I did last time too. Oh, I've been away, so that's why we have missed a couple weeks
We did.
because I was away exploring through no choice of my own Arabic hip hop.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
A lot of the drivers in the vehicles in Egypt were listening to some really interesting stuff. Like I'm not a big fan of the Arabic music, but there was some hip hop undertones that gave it a sort of a familiar feeling. Yeah, I didn't understand a thing.
Right.
I don't understand hip hop now in English, but
yeah, it's interesting because I think I could be wrong, but a lot of music in that region is in not standard 4/4, right? There's different time signatures.
Totally
so
different time
in
signatures.
different time signatures?
So it may have been something that caught my ear because it was different.
Right.
Yeah. Like if you listen to Ranja Ranja Jazz with Wynton Marsalis, it's an East Indian. They use East Indian instruments, and the Lincoln Center Jazz Ensemble get together, and they're doing stuff in like 7/12 time.
That's
Which
cool.
I didn't even know was a time.
Yeah.
Just weird stuff, but it sounds really, really good. So Sarah Vaughan, and I mean jazz, is syncopated, right? Just different timing, all in one song. You could have maybe 3 different time
It's
signatures.
More
right?
about the feel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sarah Vaughan, and then the same day in 1958, CBS came out with the first stereophonic albums, LPs,
Oh, really?
that could be played on regular mono
Right.
equipment. But if you were to purchase a stereophonic system,
You get better.
you'd get better sound. Yeah. And so that's what I got to there for the 27th and the 28th. In 1958, W.C. Handy.
All right.
Right? W.C. Handy was considered the father of the blues. Talked about that, and I was listening to the audio book, B.B. King, the B.B. King biography.
Yeah.
And talks about how W.C. Handy influenced pretty much everybody that came after him. Right? He took that. The blues started off as a communication device in the fields. In the cotton fields, when they would be singing about maybe somebody's coming, you want to keep your head low. The master of the house is coming, the foreman, somebody's coming, right? So they would sing these refrains in in a blues, in a 12-bar sort of way, not even knowing,
Right.
just drawing from their African heritage and maybe gospel and
It's
and
work
some- yeah.
songs and stuff all rolled together.
and
Yeah.
so W.C. Handy was one of the first ones to take it out of the field and into like the juke joints, right?
That's cool.
Yeah, and 1980, Brian Johnson, right?
Yeah.
Replaces
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't have that one either.
replaces the deceased Bon Scott. AC/DC, the first album.
Yeah.
The first album, Back in Black, which sold second best-selling album next to Thriller.
Yeah.
Michael Jackson's
That's huge.
Thriller. Yeah.
That's huge.
And I remember listening to it, and I loved that album.
It's a good album.
It's a really good. I think it's totally underappreciated
I think
and
so.
underrated.
I think too, because it becomes like the pre Brian Johnson, the Bon Scott era has a certain sound, and then
Mhm.
that kind of becomes the sound. And I think maybe because it was such a hit, it's like the sound that AC/DC is sort of chasing the rest of their career, right? Like, why not just replicate Back in Black every
Yeah.
time?
But then I think that happens to a lot of bands where they can't do it anymore.
No.
So just continue on making good music. It doesn't have to be that,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And the other one was that one is just sort of a footnote, which I thought was really good, was Quincy Jones produced a song by Leslie Gore in 1963. It's My Party, right? But the day before, Phil Spector produced it with the Shirelles, and Quincy Jones rushed it to the to the radio stations so he could beat Phil Spector to the punch on that one, and he did. And Quincy Jones, I think we forget how big, how powerful a producer and talented, not just powerful but talented, and how much influence he really had in the music scene. He had to become a producer. He was a great jazz trumpeter.
I was gonna say he was a trumpet player,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
But he had an esophageal hemorrhaging whenever he played, and they're like, if you continue to play, I think that's what it was, or it could have been something in his an aneurysm type thing. But yeah, they said if you continue to play, you could die because there's so much pressure on the throat and on the brain. I think when you're blowing trumpet, I don't know. If you look at the way the guys blow 'em, yeah.
Yeah. That's interesting.
So yeah, there's a great Netflix special on Quincy Jones. I don't know if it's still available or maybe it was on Paramount. I can't remember, but I was amazed at how much influence Quincy Jones had on the music industry.
Yeah, he had and the film industry for a while too. He was trying to get
Yeah.
a lot of black films made, and yeah, he had a big hand behind the scenes on a lot of stuff.
Yeah, he played with Miles Davis.
Yeah.
And he's quite talented trumpet player. What do you got?
I've got just briefly on the 25th, 1942, Aretha Franklin is born.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Which someone who I didn't really pay much attention to until the Muscle Shoals documentary.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting that if you listen to early Aretha, she doesn't have her sound or her point of view yet, right?
Yeah.
She's trying all these different little things. She's doing all these different cover versions, Try a Little Tenderness, things like that. Respect, of course, is also a cover. But it's through that and with Muscle Shoals that she kind of discovers who Aretha Franklin
Who
can
she
be.
is, yeah.
And she becomes the queen of soul.
Muscle Shoals keeps popping up for some reason on my YouTube feed, and I don't know why.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I like
You
it.
better watch it again, I
Dwayne
guess.
Allman.
Yeah. I've also got the 29th, 1975, Physical Graffiti is number 1 on Billboard album sales, top 250. But also, Led Zeppelin 4 is number 83. Houses of the Holy is number 92. Led Zeppelin 2 is 104, which this is surprising me that Zeppelin 2 is 104 and Zeppelin 1 is 116 because those came out in 1969. So this is 6 years later.
Yeah.
And they're still in the top 250 of album sales. Zeppelin 3 is 124. So they are the first band in history to have six albums at the same time in the top 250 record sales.
Was it 250? I thought it was the Billboard 200.
Well, I mean,
Well,
even
either
if
way,
it's
it's
200,
still,
the highest one is 111.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, or 124. Anyways, but
that's
yeah,
amazing.
That's
I saw that.
That's crazy.
And I was like, oh, that's pretty historic. So, but I didn't.
Zeppelin was big in 75, I guess.
Yeah.
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 And it, especially for a band that didn't release singles, like they played the game their own way.
Mm-hmm. Well, you go back to when they were formed. I think people forget that they didn't really start gelling until 69, 68. When were the CBC? I love the CBC recordings. Maybe that's 67, but they weren't around the same time as they were all in different bands.
Right.
Page was in the Yardbirds playing bass.
Yeah.
Right? Until he finally put together the band that he wanted to put together. And
right. And he went around and assembled his group.
Yeah.
And then I've got the 25th. That's what it says anyways. Usually I put these in order, but maybe not. In the year 2020, it had become 15,561 days since the death of Elvis, which is the same amount of time that he had been alive. Also the 25th, I did not write down 2006, Buck Owens dies of a heart attack.
Great.
Age 76.
Banjo player and guitar player.
Yeah, he's pretty talented.
Hee Haw. I used to watch him on Hee Haw with Roy Clark.
Did you?
Roy Clark, who is a fantastic guitarist too. And I think Roy Clark, was he one of the session musicians? Let's look that up.
Yeah,
and
I'm
Muscle
not sure.
Shoals.
Yeah, that's a
Maybe.
good question.
Maybe not.
But I actually meant to look up whether or not Buck Owens was his actual name, and I forgot to because that's such a country name. They all have got such country names, don't they?
Yeah.
And then I've got just two more. On the 27th in 2006, Graceland. I've got a theme here going a little bit.
Yeah, I see that.
Is designated a National Historical Landmark.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I watched Priscilla the other day.
Okay.
A new film about Priscilla Presley.
Yeah.
And it's sort of the opposite of the Elvis film that came out last year, because the Elvis film was like, look at Elvis, how awesome Elvis is. And this is, just reminding you that Priscilla was a 14-year-old girl who was, romantically linked up with the biggest star in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a little bit of a discrepancy there.
Yeah.
In her agency.
Well, I think that, and I think the Colonel was just a terrible, terrible manager.
Yes, well, that leads into my next fact. My final fact. The 28th of March, 1975, Barbra Streisand goes backstage at Elvis's Hilton Las Vegas concert to offer him the male lead in her remake of A Star Is Born. Elvis is interested, but the Colonel advises him not to take it. Elvis wants to do it anyways, so then the Colonel demands more money. So Chris Christopherson takes the role instead. It becomes the second highest grossing film of 1976. It's nominated for 4 Academy Awards, and it wins Best Original Song that year. One of many films that Elvis was approached for, and the Colonel would not let him take part in.
Yeah, and I couldn't figure that out because they, I would have loved to have seen what Elvis could have done if he didn't do movies.
Yeah.
And focus solely on the music. Would he have written more of his own stuff? Would he have moved along with, the Beach Boys did a pretty good job of staying with the tide when it was changing to some degree when you listen to Pet Sounds, but
Yeah.
would Elvis have made that transition to a more 60s, 70s rock kind of thing?
I don't know. That's an interesting question.
Maybe not. Maybe not. I remember getting the paper the day he died.
Do you?
The Toronto Sun. Yeah. And I had to bring it to my stepmother who loved Elvis. It was a sad day. Thanks for listening to This Week in Music History, March 25th to the 30th, and thanks to my co-host, Terrence Thomason, who's also the host of On the Marquee Deep Dive. We did a Spirited Away episode, man. It was amazing. First time I've ever seen Miyazaki, and I will watch some more. This Week in Music History was produced at the Arts North Podcast Studio in Prince George, British Columbia. If you want to find out more about the Dirty Hippie, check out the website, dirtyhippiebc.com. Maybe even order some bling, right? Yeah, you want some Dirty Hippie bling. Don't forget to check out our playlists for This Week in Music History, March 25th to the 30th.